I had this kind of realization wherein it dawned on me that this whole world is like a rage bait. You know, it acts as bait for us to develop the, you could say, capacity or resolve or decision to not be taken by it, to not buy into it, to grow up, basically, to cease getting quote unquote bamboozled. And so this whole world is kind of set up for you to buy into notness. It's like a notness machine. It's a luring machine. And of course, it's up to us to decide to buy into it. Again, to keep biting the bait. When we take a look around in this world or at our experiences, the seeming apparency is the, you can say, presentation of notness. Right? When we see, let's say, a situation of seeming not enoughness, then the idea that is being offered or presented is scarcity, the notness of abundance, the notness of yesness, presence, right? Lack and scarcity. This is the opposite of reality, which is existence, yesness, presence, ever isingness, you know. And so when the idea of the inverse of reality is being presented to us, we are getting quote unquote baited to buy into lack and scarcity, right? The machine, the riling machine, the rage bait machine, the notness machine is doing its job, so to speak. And this goes the same with all the situations or experiences that seem to convey notness. When certain situations or certain words of other people that has a attacking or diminishing flavor to it, if we buy into it, right, then we get the sense of devaluation, diminishment, unworthiness, invalidity, etc. The notness of worthiness, validity, and deservingness, right? And so it was like a setup or an invitation for you to break away from truth and reality to have an affair with notness, with unreality, right? If we bite the bait and buy into these notness ideas. And the same with all other notness ideas, right? A situation happens, then it incited the sense of unbelongingness or inadequacy or incompleteness. And if you buy into it, right, well, then at that moment, you got lured, you got baited by the notness, right? The inverse, the unreality. Because reality is completeness, deservingness, belongingness, connectedness, and wholeness, right? So the machine worked, you can say. At that moment, we bought into its deception or seeming, seeming authority. We were spineless and just got taken in, got sucked in by the notness idea. And we can notice how this physical dimension is that, it's like a scenario or a setup for us to be in, you can say, in a lower frequency. It's a pulling machine, it pulls us down and it makes us get sucked into the drama of notness as if it's reality. as, as if it's the end all be all reality. For example, death, physical death. We see people dying or physical lives ending. The idea, is as if the notness of existence, death, right? Not aliveness. So that's the seeming appearance. But of course, as we know, once existence, always existence. So the physical body dies, but there is not a lack or a scarcity of existence. There's not a canceling out of existence. That being continuously exists, you know, just transitioning in a different realm or a different dimension. And so again, this reality is like a play. It's like a play of the notness. It's showing death as if death equates to non-existence, as if it's the end all be all thing to be feared or something, and that dying physically equates to the canceling out of existence. This world is kind of presenting that. It's like a bamboozlement, you could say, quote unquote. And of course, I'm not saying to, to not mourn, to not grieve, to not feel sad or any of that. But I'm saying the mechanics of it. I'm saying the mechanics of it because also in large part, the grieving or the mourning is due to the idea of loss, right? Loss, right? Loss of connection, loss of life, loss of aliveness, loss of existence, which again, of course, in reality, in fact, is not the case. But it's it's a human experience that we are in right now. Another idea that this physical 3D realm offers is confinement, right? So just being in a human body in all its limitations. It's the opposite of infinity. It's the opposite of, let's say, freedom and liberation, right? It makes you buy into it. It's like this whole human earth matrix is again, it's like a machinery to present the notness, to present the opposite of reality. And it's you can say it's a training ground for you to develop a backbone, to not, well, be confined and myopified in it and neglect the other side of the coin, so to speak. To not be so taken and sucked in by the matrix, you know? And another thing is the corruption of this world, the untruthful, deceptive behavior, of a number of people. And so in these kinds of experiences, we get, you can say, lured in the embodiment or the experience of distrust, the notness of trust. Because of the world and our experiences, we can live life in this tight, the guarded, non-trusting beingness. We become kind of closed off and untrusting, which is again the workings of this world, right? It puts you from a place of openness and trust and shrinks you to closed offness and distrust. So once again, the world has worked, it has decreased us. You can say it has, lowered our frequency. It has pulled us, it worked. It has removed us from love. Not really, not really. But, it has made us see the other as quote unquote enemy or as quote unquote competitor, right? Because the world is set up so that we see the outside as something that attacks, something that's gonna harm us or defeat us or something. And again, if we bite the bait, well, then that's how it is, that's how we'll live life. And again, I'm not saying to throw common sense away, to deliberately put ourselves in harm's way, to not have logic and rationality. But of course, we don't throw away intelligence, right? We don't throw away common sense. However, if we choose to not bite the bait, then we also don't throw away our trust in the divine, our trust in God, our connectedness with being, with source. We don't entertain the idea of abandonment or disconnectedness, right? Now, truth and reality is equal. Everything is whole and complete. And so we can notice that the opposite is being pushed, is being cultivated in this world. Hierarchy, inequality, all the isms, racism, sexism, classism, etc. Right? All the things that will divide and make things unequal. Add to that, again, the hierarchical system. It's as if we are supposed to see authority out there or in some certain individuals, as if we're supposed to give our power away to certain individuals and see them as, as some higher person or someone who's on a pedestal, right? So that's, you can say, another bait on this planet is this tendency of pedestaling, putting someone on a pedestal based on whatever standard, based on status, based on appearance, based on whatever, right? We humans have that tendency, especially because we started as children, right? And you can say it's inevitable that we put authority out there on our parents, on adults, on teachers, on the world. That's how it is when we were children, right? But as an adult, now we are, you can say, called to snap out of that, to wean away from that, to unmerge from that, to drop that infantilism, to not give in to that tendency. And so we can notice that this is another bait on this planet, is the bait to give our power away. The bait to put someone on a pedestal, to lower ourselves and play this kind of mommy daddy dynamics of lowering ourselves and wanting to get the approval or favor of whoever, of whatever person who we put on a pedestal. Spiritual awakening, in large part, is snapping out of wanting to be in some kind of mommy daddy dynamics, you know, because it's being played out again and again in relationships, in work situations, in religious communities, or even spiritual communities. Like how some people just blindly worship, quote unquote, a guru, right? Also in cults, and yeah, in family dynamics wherein everyone is already an adult. This childish neediness of wanting approval, wanting favor, wanting external validation, wanting to please, right? Wanting to please whoever in order to gain their favor or love and prove yourself worthy and valid, as if they're the grand, quote unquote, dole outer or dispenser, right, of these true nature qualities, because you have made yourself small and that person big, right? So now you play this mommy daddy dynamics. It's just childish, And yeah, that's one of the lures on this planet, to get sucked in that old dynamic. And as you can notice, When someone is young or immature, they're easily influenced, right? They're easily baited. They're easily sucked into something, and they're easily riled up. I played this certain multiplayer game, and I was talking with another player, and another player joined in. And he was very funny for me because he started spewing nonsense. He started creating drama. He started creating scenario and role playing, and I got what he's doing. He's just messing around. He's just riling things up. However, my companion, the other player that I was conversing with, got so riled up. She got so affected. She got so annoyed. And since I got what was going on, that this other player is just rage baiting, I was sort of joining the role play that he started, but in a lighthearted, fun way, right? However, my companion got really affected and they left. And I told her that that player was just role playing, was just messing around. And she said that she doesn't care. She was annoyed. And so this other player told me that, oh, your companion is so serious. So that's how it is with this world. It's up to us to bite the bait. If we bite the bait, then we get riled up. Our frequency is lowered. We bleed out our currency to anger, to victimization. Our energy gets spent or used or wasted on upholding illusion or notness, which doesn't serve us. It doesn't do us any good. There was also this one time where I was watching short videos, and it was inflammatory, vitriolic, offensive video after another. It was such divisive, the inflammatory content. And I got sucked into it. Watching the video and reading the comments, it incited such anger and hatred and rage in me. And it was like one video after another of similar content. It was like I was filled with hatred. It was like my energy was sucked and I was left with rage and hatred. And I realized what was happening. And so I stepped back and ceased doing that. I got sucked in this, and now it did me no good. I gave it my attention, and now I'm left with no good products, toxic products, hatred, rage, of being offended, etc. Right? So I was like, I give you that. You had me. I bit the bait. Okay. So yeah, that seems to be how this world is. The whole world is like a rage bait. Again, it's like a riling machine. It's a contrast. It's a contrast machine. It's spewing unreality. It's presenting products or ideas of notness, unreality, right? And it's up to us to entertain it, to merge with it, to get taken by it. This reminds me of a documentary that me and my mom watched long ago, probably when I was a teenager. It was a long time ago. And it's a documentary about this temple, and the monks are doing their practice. And this particular scene stuck with me. And I may be wrong in my interpretation because I was still young. I may have misinterpreted that particular scene. But if I remember correctly, again, I may be wrong. That practice was the monks are paired up. And the one of the pair will try to rile up the other monk. And the other monk will just have to sit and will have to find stoicism while he's being bombarded with all kinds of inciting words and aggravating attitude of some sort. And so the other monk that's gonna do the riling up will say stuff, will say baiting stuff, and will do some kind of motion to incite or to infuriate the other monk. And the practice was that the monk will have to just be, will have to not bite the bait. And I don't know, that scene was just stuck with me. And now I realize that, yeah, that's how the world is. You know, it's a bait machine. It's a riling machine. And we have the choice to not give it our currency. We have the choice to not get enmeshed with it or get sucked in it, and thus then consequently lowering our frequency, having our currency vampired away, bled out to to this world, right? To the Notness machinery. And I can also think back of the times that I felt slighted, that I felt diminished or invalidated, as if you don't have the right to exist, or you don't have the right to have your own views, to have your own position. Experiences of bullying, of gaslighting, of being put down, of being singled out and made to be some kind of wrongness or something. And I look back on that experiences and I realized that, okay, that was the situation, right? It's not a condonement of the act, right, of doing that to another, but at the same time, it was because I bought into it, you know? It was because I got sucked in. It was because I've engaged with it, I have given my power away to that. I have internalized and enmeshed with it, merged with it, and again, basically bought into it. Hence the experience, hence the no good experience, the no good feeling. I have made myself small, right? So it's not the words per se that the other person is spewing at us or is throwing at us. It's our buying into it. Ultimately, it's us believing it. It's us getting brainwashed by it. Like you can pass by, someone who is, you can say, not mentally sound, and that person can be spewing all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of cussing, all kinds of bad words at us. But since we are aware that that person is not mentally sound, then we just move along. We didn't find the credence in his words. It's just nothing. And ultimately, because we didn't buy into it, hence we didn't get that diminishing experience. Right? So it's not the outside external element per se, right? It's the same thing. It's the same scenario of an external element saying all kinds of words, right? Trying to put you down or luring you into buying into notness ideas. And we can only experience that if we buy into it. It's always up to us. It's always up to us how we respond to it. And I mentioned external element, but I would like to also include the internal element. You can say thoughts and emotions that are incited or that arise in us, quote unquote, in us or within our consciousness. It's not our whole self, right? It's not our whole identity. And so once again, it's up to us how to respond to that. So let's say some external element says something or did something, and it incited a sense of devaluation or unworthiness. And so there's no denial that that was incited, that arose within your consciousness. Now, it doesn't mean anything. It arose. Now, it's still up to you to buy into it. Even if it arose within, within your field or within your consciousness, that sense, the reality is you're not that. Your whole beingness is not just confined in there. And so it's up to you to buy into that, even though it feels like a personal sensation, even though it felt like something personal or a personal arising of a sense of devaluation or unworthiness. It doesn't matter. It almost doesn't even matter if it's external or internal. Your ability to respond remains the same. It's still up to you to buy into it, to bite the bait. Also, another thing is that this world is physical, right? It's categorized as physical, solid reality. And so the seeming seeming presentation is that this is the notness of spirit, the notness of spirituality, because it's physical. The seeming apparency is that this is disconnected from spirit. This is removed. This is the notness of spirit. And so if we get so engrossed, right, so entranced in this illusion, you can say, then the more and more we feed the solidity, right? The more and more we feed the seeming, hardening, the confinement of it, the removedness of it. And so it becomes calcified and solid and serious and grave. The more we feed or buy into the seriousness or gravity of this world in all its situations and circumstances and systems and whatnot, the more that we position ourselves at the mercy of it. The more that we hand power over to that which we see as solid, the more we bite the bait of solidity, then the more we forget spirit, right? The more we are myopified and confined to physicality, as if the physicality is, again, is the end all be all, is the dictator, is the authority, right? If physicality dies, then I die. Then that's the end of existence. If physicality is like this, then I am like this. You see, if we give authority to it, then we're at the mercy of it and we do everything to control it. That's why there's some people who are doing everything, to escape mortality, to sustain their physicality forever or something. And so if we don't bite the bait, right? If we don't bite the bait so much, you can say, then there's another layer that opens up, you know? This reality, this solid, quote unquote, this physical reality becomes, you can say, transparent, becomes transparent to spirit. It will sort of feel more, quote unquote, magical, you can say, because we didn't bite the bait, we didn't bite the bait of the idea of drudging solidity and mundaneness and removedness, like an abandonment from spirit, like a separatedness from spirit, right? This physical dimension, we can get lost in that idea because of the presentation of this physical dimension being the only thing which is visible, right? Hence, we can be fooled or bamboozled to think or believe that it's the only thing there is, thus then confining or myopifying us in it. And again, forgetting the other side of the coin. So, in essence, this world is like a seducer, you know? It seduces you away from your quote unquote marriage with truth and reality, with isness, seduces you, right? Lures you into having an affair with notness. And so it's a luring machine. It's a notness machine. It's gonna always try to suck you in and make you quote unquote make you leave reality, your original marriage, right, to truth, to the true beloved, and seduce you into having an affair with notness, with unreality. It's a propaganda machine. It's a scamming machine. It works to scam you, to lure you into, again, into joining in notness, right? To give yourself to notness. And so, if we are aware of this, you find a sense of lightness. Whereas before, something, like a drama or some thing is so grave, so serious. If we are aware of the workings of this world, then it lightens, it becomes transparent. It becomes transparent to yesness, to goodness, you can say. You know how we outgrow certain films or movies? When we were young, we were so engrossed in it, entranced in it. But after a few years, when we have matured and we watch the movie again, it's become so corny and cheesy. It's like it becomes comedic. The gravity or seriousness of it, we cannot get into it or get so sucked into it compared to before. And again, with the analogy of movies, someone has to play the role of the villain, quote unquote. If not, there'll be no movie, The hero will not be a hero without the villain. So someone has to take on the role of the villain, right? And you can say the people, right? The people who are deep in notness, deep in unconsciousness, deep in division and toxicity and exploitation and whatnot. It's like they have taken that role. They have taken that role in this grand play. Like when I look back on it, dealing with these kinds of people or quote unquote horrible situations have brought me great benefit in terms of maturation and spiritual realizations and made me develop a backbone. And so this world, this machinery, it can work. It's up to us. This whole world, this notness machinery can be a very powerful tool to induce expedited growth in spirits, in individuals. And so when I see the players of notness, the people who incite drama, the people who rage bait, who are keeping the notness machine running, there's even kind of like an appreciation for them, to take on that role. Again, it's kind of like appreciating the actor or the villain in the movie. Someone has to take on that role. For the creation of that movie, well, someone has to take on that role. Someone has to be the notness. Someone has to be the opposite. Someone has to be the inciter. And, again, it's not about condoning, it's not about agreeing or promoting these kinds of malicious behavior or fragmentive behavior or people. But again, it's like a transparency, you know. Recognizing this doesn't mean, right? Doesn't equate to condemnation. Doesn't mean you throw yourselves at them. doesn't mean you deliberately look for harmful situations or whatever. Right? But it's like not ending there, it's not like hitting the wall and ending there, but it's allowing it to be transparent and revealing to you more in-depth insights, more in-depth reality in this.